Whether it be my story or my guest stories, we all share parts of the human experience. In our own ways, we have all faced triumph and challenges, both joy and pain, both gratitude and grief. My life changed forever on October 11, 2019, the day I had a stroke. It had a ripple effect, not only for me, but also for those I cherish. Through grace, we are here today to pay it forward. It's my mission to focus on what brings us together and help people find their paths through life stories. Kristen's life changed in 2017 when her world was flipped upside down. Her vision, Noble Ones, came together after sharing her mental health struggles. Inspired to make an impact, she wanted to create a difference in the lives of others. So, Kristen, I always say that everybody has a story. So, you have a lot of stories.
I do have a lot of stories. Where do I even begin, right?
You're a Denver girl.
Mm-hmm.
Born and raised here.
No, but I would say the formative years. Moved here as a freshman in high school.
From
Michigan.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I was there in Michigan for a few years in middle school, and then we came out here because my dad got, kind of transplanted, started his own business.
And what business is that?
He was sold air compressors. So we come from like this sales. We were all in sales. My dad was in sales, my brother was in sales, I was in sales for 20 plus years. It's kind of in our genes.
Compressors?
Air compressors.
No. In your blood?
No, not for me. For me, I started in pharmaceutical, actually. Kind of made that my degree was exercise and sports science in college. So for what I was like, I want to go into sales. That seemed like a good fit, right? You have kind of this science background of like physiology, anatomy. So go sell pharmaceuticals. So that kind of started me on my journey.
Okay, so how long did you do that?
Oh, geez. I think I did pharma sales for like 5 years. And then I went into medical equipment sales, which was more of like the grind, like just here's your bag of stuff, now go do it.
Parts, I call them parts. You sell parts.
Yeah. And then from there, I went kind of into the corporate world with GE Healthcare, selling like cardiology equipment and patient monitors. And then I took a break and started a business, which I think we may have connected at some point. Then I was doing personal styling.
Oh, wow.
So I started my own business doing that and was like helping people with their closets, taking them shopping, doing outfits. And then my kids were in high school and getting ready to go to college. And I'm like, okay, we're going to have to ramp up, to pay for college and stuff. So I went back into sales and I did aesthetic sales, which is like, stuff for your face and hair and all that good stuff.
Parts or just makeup?
It was more like equipment again, like skin pen. I sold Cool Sculpting, which like freezes.
Does it work?
Cool Sculpting? It actually does. Yeah, it actually does work. It just kind of depends on what you're doing it for. But yeah, for the right patient, it's amazing.
Good to know.
Yeah, so I was kind of like following the rules of what I thought I was supposed to do in my life, right? Which is, you get good grades so that you can get into college, and then you go to college and you get your degree, and then you get out and you get married and you have kids. And I was following all the rules throughout.
Whose rules?
Most of my life. Well, exactly. Societal rules. And I kind of grew up with my perception based on some things that happened to me growing up was I had to be perfect.
Okay. Everything we have that we have events that change our life. So what happened to you when you grew up?
Yeah. So kind of my biggest life-changing event was in 2017. And at that time I was going through a divorce and my brother passed away and then I lost a job. And it happened all within like 3 months.
Like bad luck comes in threes?
In threes, that's what they say.
So I'm sorry about your brother.
Oh,
What happened?
It's okay. So he struggled with addiction.
Oh.
And, it was alcoholism. And he fell and hit his head.
Wow.
So that really kind of cracked me wide open. Like I knew he was sick. I knew he was struggling. But I didn't expect that so sudden. And then that was coupled with the other two events. And so I just sort of crumbled, right? Like I was like, what's going on? What's actually happening? Why has my whole world been like pulled out from underneath me?
Okay, why?
Why was it?
Yeah.
Well, so that I would shift directions and actually align with what I think I was meant to do here, which is what I'm doing now.
Did you have a hard time adjusting, saying you're a rule follower, right? The infamous they say, right? You have a guideline, and then this bad misfortune happens.
It happens, yeah. And what was remarkable was I literally felt a shift, and I'll just call it like an awakening, a shift in my consciousness to the point where nothing that I was doing resonated anymore. My job didn't resonate. My friendships didn't resonate. It was almost like something inside me just completely shifted. So I had to kind of reinvent, reparent, restructure, everything, because I just wasn't meant to be that person. I think that's why it all had to crumble.
Okay, so at what age are you when you have this epiphany?
This happened. This was 5 years ago. So I was 48 years old.
So your kids, do they adjust?
Well, they were in college, and because my brother had just passed, I didn't tell anybody. I didn't want my kids to worry. I didn't want to tell my parents. And so I just kind of, this is crazy, but I just stayed in bed for like 3 months. I had 2 dogs. So I'd get up, I would walk them, and I'd come back in bed.
Why?
Because I was depressed. I couldn't move. It was like, and so that's what catapulted me kind of into my mission, was like, this mental health stuff. That's why my brother went down that path, right? And then I struggled with depression since my early 20s, was put on medication. So that's what I started to dig into. Okay,
so you're in bed for 3 months, and what happens? 3 months and 1 day that you wake up.
It was like, so what started to happen was, like I said, I felt like there was this enormous shift going on with me, right? But I also, as much as it was sad what had happened, there was also like this kind of, I'll just call it like an inner peace. It was just something that I knew I had to trust, that on the other side it would be different.
What other side?
The other side of, so this is what I say, like, and if you've never like had depression or been major depression, it's hard for people to understand, right? There's so much stigma around, like, just pull up your bootstraps, get on, what's the big deal?
Take a pill.
Yeah, take a pill. But what it feels like is like you're standing in this bottom of a well. And up, like if you look up, you see like your friends and your family and the sunshine and everything you love is out there. And you're at the bottom, and you literally like physically sometimes can't even pick up your arm to just like reach to get them to pull you out. And then the other thing though that I learned along the way is, in that well, if you would actually look over, there's like a ladder, and you could actually just climb out.
Wow.
Yourself. But there's a process that you have to go through, and that is the process that I was missing my whole life. Was I was emotional, right? Like we're emotional. We all have emotions. We cry, we laugh. But I wasn't in touch with my own emotions, my own feelings. So I was stuffing, I was avoiding, I was running. And this is what we all do, right? Like we have addictions, whether that's shopping, gambling, we drink, we game, we get on our phones. We're all doing stuff to avoid just sitting with ourselves and actually allowing feelings to run through us. And so that's what mine manifested as depression. And that's what I battled my whole life.
So when did you climb out? Did you see the ladder?
Well, no. This has been the process over the last 5 years. So then what I did was I went on a yoga retreat, actually. I just booked a trip after that, and I went to Nicaragua. And I went by myself on this yoga retreat. And that's where I cried my eyes out. I think I released finally so much of it, because yoga will do that. You kind
With strangers?
Yeah, strangers. But the amazing thing is, so many of the people that I met, I still keep in touch with.
Oh, that's nice.
It was like we're all kind of on which I call a journey, right? And you connect with people when you're supposed to. And everyone was sort of doing the same thing, trying to find like this next chapter or version of themselves. And so that's when it really started to hit me, like, I've got to take this experience and somehow give back.
Okay, so wait. What experience? Your brother's passing, the divorce, what?
Yeah, the fact that I came out of something that I don't believe a lot of people could come out of.
Okay.
And so how did I do it? It was like I started to own my shit.
And okay, so
if I can say that.
You can say that. So who do you fess up to?
Well, I would say it all starts with you. Like, I had to look in the mirror and be like, I am the one, I'm not a victim, right? Like, I'm the one that was responsible for, whether it's like a failed relationship, it could be a marriage, it could be a job, it could be family stuff, friendship stuff. Like, you have to own your own things. We're not a victim, but we're taught that everything is external, right? Like, oh,
not my fault.
It's not my fault, right?
Yeah.
And so I couldn't do that anymore. It was like, if I keep trying to do the same thing over and over and it's not working, so what's the common denominator? It was me.
Okay, you look in the mirror, you said, okay, it's me, and you walk out the door, then what happens?
Yeah, like
day one, you walk out the door.
What do I have to do to not feel this way anymore? So I started to do a lot of self-care, learning. I dug a lot into trauma, depression, emotions. I went to a therapist. I did some EMDR. I don't know if you know what that is. And it's like, it just starts to get the trauma out, and it points you back to your core wounds, which, I used to hate when I would go to therapists and they'd be like, let's talk about your childhood. And you're like, seriously? Like, that's over.
My mother did it, right?
Let's talk about now. But that is where the keys are, because it's not about what happened to you. It's not about, like, the environment that you were put into. It's how you perceived it. It's the lens that you were looking at through. And so that's when I was like, wait a minute. The reason why I saw through that lens is because I was never taught about how to process emotions, how to actually sit with feelings, that feelings are okay. It's okay to be sensitive. If I would have been taught those things, maybe my lens would have been different, and maybe my whole story or journey would have been different, but it still wouldn't have led me to here. But that, I just started to go, oh my God, this is it.
So is it your mother's fault that you...
No. Again, it's no one's fault.
Yeah.
But it was my parents were, let's say, emotionally unavailable. My brother was a big piece of it, because he was kind of a troublemaker, right? So he was always getting the attention. And I was like, I don't want to upset my parents, so I'll be perfect. And then also, he was mean to me, which I was like, oh, well, it's a big older brother stuff. And through therapy, it was like, no, that's actually like emotional abuse.
Wow.
So then you perceive it as a kid that you're not good enough, you're unworthy, you're not lovable, right? All these things that you don't really know as a little kid, but you're perceiving it that way, and you start to create these patterns to avoid that.
So I know that you have been married 3 times.
Yeah.
Or were you repeating that pattern? like I'm not perfect enough for him,
Yep.
but I'll
Well,
try again.
Yeah, or it's their fault.
Oh.
They're not doing, if they would do this, then I'll be happy. If they would change that, then I'll be happy. Rather than we just accept everyone for where they're at, right? And then if you get to a point where you're not growing anymore, it's like, why can't you say, wow, like the experience up to here has been amazing and I love you and let's move on. Let's get another car lease, right? It's like leasing cars. But
that's a great analogy.
It is like every 3 years traded in
Yeah.
or not. But the patterns, whether it's in relationships, like you'll keep playing out the same patterns over and over until you break the cycle.
Okay.
And it starts with you.
Okay, so you see all these people up at the top of the well.
Yeah.
So you climb out of the well, and who do you start talking to? Because you're a different girl now?
Mm-hmm. Well, so this is interesting too. And again, it's all like you can't go back, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I'll tell you what I learned. So I think I had mentioned to you when I was going through a divorce, I left Lone Tree. I fled, like, I got to get out of here.
Mm-hmm.
So what I was doing was I was still running from my feelings, thinking like, oh, if I get out of here, then I'll be fine.
Yeah.
And so that continued for a while, because as you start to heal, I think from the inside out, and you start to get to know why you're doing the things you're doing, that's level 1, right? But it takes a while to work out all these patterns. So everything changed. Like I literally created new friendships.
Do you ever get rid of the old pattern? Does it get tucked away and you learn new patterns?
You just become more aware. It's about emotional awareness. You just recognize it when it comes up by being more aware. You're like, oh, there's unworthiness. How's it going? Right? Or, oh, there's that perfectionism again. And you just start to get to know yourself when you slow down and you connect in, whether that's through meditation or spending time, go walk in nature. Like we have to slow down to be able to notice what's actually going on within us. And so I don't think, it's not about getting rid of. It's
Mm-hmm.
accepting. Wow, and loving. Like this is who I am based on what I went through. And also at some point, you have to put the story down, right? Because you can carry it like, oh, this is my story. This is what happened to me. It still carries kind of that victim energy. So at some point, you're like, that was the story. Shut that book.
Okay, story or stories?
Whatever it is. For me, I feel like I've had like multiple lifetimes in this lifetime and still going, right? Just keep transforming. But I like that. I like to grow. I like to evolve. I like to expand and learn. Some people don't.
And you did. It seemed to me you were stifled before,
Mm-hmm.
being the perfect girl.
Yeah. Well, what I was doing, which is what we all do, because this is what we're taught, I was trying to fix everything externally.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if I'm not connected in my marriage, I'll go run a marathon. I'll go join this group. I'll go to church. I'll get a new job. I'll shop. You keep trying to move the pieces around externally, thinking that will shift things, which it does sometimes temporarily.
Mm-hmm.
But until you go in here, like in here, inside of you, and figure out what the patterns are, you're going to keep chasing things externally, and you'll never truly, I don't think, be satisfied.
Okay, couple of questions. Like, do you think it's more of a female issue or a male issue, or it doesn't matter?
It's all of us, both, all ages. It doesn't discriminate. Your mental and emotional health is like, it's part of who we are.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's harder for men. The male clients that I have are not in touch at all with their emotions. I would say females are more so,
Mm-hmm.
but connecting. I actually have teenage clients that are more knowledgeable and more connected than their parents. So I don't think it's about so much age. Again, it has to do with your experience and the lens you're looking through.
So if you're sitting with a girlfriend
Mm-hmm.
and can you tell that it's total denial?
I can.
And do you tell them?
You know, I've learned this just acceptance and compassion for everybody because I was there, right? Like I can look at someone and I call myself, I guess, if you had to label it, like a intuitive emotional coach, where I can literally feel and sense someone's energy, and as they start to talk about maybe an issue or a struggle they're having, I can just hold space for it. And then what I like to do is I ask questions. Because it's not about me telling you what to do.
Yeah.
But I'll ask questions or I'll plant a seed to help them sort of open up their perspective. And if they choose to shift, then they will.
Do they see that?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I'm opening up to you.
Yeah.
Why am I like not? Why now? Right?
Yeah. And I think I could just kind of have always been that way too, where I'm open myself about sharing my experiences, so people will naturally open up to me.
Today, not before, though.
Always.
Oh.
Always have been that way. That's why it was so natural for me to move into coaching and teaching and educating.
Okay, so tell me about your business. The name of the business?
Yeah, it's such a great story. So through all that, like, you know, fall apart, piecing myself back together, I would read a lot. And I still do in the morning. I love to read in the morning. It's just like my creative time. And the word noble, I wrote it in phone notes. It's just like I was reading something and that word, I was like, oh, I love that word. It's so powerful. It's like becoming that highest version of who you are. It's like royalty and values and nobility. So I wrote it and I literally wrote next to it, business name. Skip forward. I don't know. My youngest son came to me and he's like, hey, Mom, we should start a streetwear brand. And I'm like, tell me more about that. And so I'm like, as we started to talk about it, and the platform we'll build it on will be about mental health. Like, oh, I love that. So I go, what do you think about the word noble? And he's like, I like that. And then we added one, because one is about unity. One is about we're all connected.
Okay, so I'm going to go back.
Yeah.
Why did he say build the platform on mental health?
So it kind of runs in my family. You know, nobody would want to admit that. But when I say mental health, like even when I say it, there you can feel the stigma around it because it's just become like this buzzword, like, oh, mental health, like it's a bad thing. Well, what else are you going to call it? Mental health, emotional health. We all have it. But I do think that the struggles of like depression and anxiety run through families because of the patterns. You're learning your behaviors, your emotional things from your family. So he was going through some of his own tough times. And he knew my story, of course. As a matter of fact, he's the one that at one time came over and said, Mom, I was struggling. And he's like, I need you to get your shit together.
Wow.
And it was like it snapped me out of it.
Because he didn't?
Because he was struggling.
Oh, okay.
And it was almost like, I need you. Right? You need me. I need you to get your shit together. And so I did. And then there was a period of time when, skip forward, I said the same thing to him. Okay, I got my shit together. And now I need you to get your shit together. So we've had our own separate experiences. But yeah, that mental health, depression stuff runs through my family.
So mental health, like, can be so many things.
So many things.
Right? And I agree that the buzzword. So your business.
Yeah. So then, so we decided going forward, we actually launched it with coaching because at the time there's a huge crisis going on, right? Like we've got a global crisis now, but even before COVID happened, youth in Colorado were really struggling. It's like one of the highest I don't know where we're at now, but we were at the bottom of the list for, and you would think like Colorado, wow, like we're outside, we have all this sunshine, kids should be doing great, but they weren't. They were struggling. So what was interesting is, again, because it's mental health and I have a career in sales, I'm like, well, I'm going to the Department of Education, the Department of Behavioral Health, the Department of Suicide Prevention. I'm going like directly in. But what I found was all the red tape. Mm-hmm. They don't want to talk about it. They've kind of labeled it social and emotional learning in schools. And it's like a check the box. Here's a curriculum. The kids learn it. And we've done our part. But they weren't really what are we doing in the communities? What are we doing to gather the kids? What can we do in the schools where we actually get all the kids around and we start talking about this shit? Like that it's normal to feel, like you don't fit in and this, that, and the other. But I couldn't get anywhere with that. So I started to just coach one-on-one. And what I realized...
To whom?
We launched it with youth.
In the schools, but your son's friends?
Yeah, or just referrals kind of came once people knew what I was doing. And then what I learned, because, everything is just always shifting. And I'm like, wow, the parents are messed up. Okay? And you're sitting there with the kid, and then, the parents are obviously paying for the coaching, but you're realizing a lot of what the kids are struggling with is coming from home. Mm-hmm. So then I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to discriminate. I got to open it up. So now it's like, I just allow whatever, people just seem to be guided towards me, right? And it's like, it's men, women, parents, kids, because we all have mental health. We're all struggling with something emotionally, and that's normal. But it's just like your limitations that you think you have, they're just up here. Mm-hmm. It's here.
Do you know the saddest thing that I think is like these kids are crying. So to me, your son was crying out for help. But the parents, instead of the parents creating the charity or the cure, the kids want it.
Yeah, they do. And I think the other thing is there's all this stigma like around like therapy and counseling and psychiatry and whatever. And I'm a true believer that it's not everyone needs therapy. Not everyone needs a diagnosis. What people need is just to understand how to feel their feelings. Be given permission to do that. Just work on how do you become more aware? How do you stop and slow down when you're having a moment so that your thoughts don't keep glomming onto each other and you create this whole story and scenario in your head, because that's what makes you feel sad, depressed, angry, or your thoughts. So that's where we always start, is noticing your thoughts. You just become the observer.
Okay, so how do you get out into the public to tell them that?
Well, that's been the thing. So what I'm realizing is I love to coach one-on-one, and I will always do that because I feel like that's kind of my gift. I love to just sit with someone and know their story and try to help. But I feel like my message needs to get out to a bigger audience.
Yeah.
So through the streetwear brand, which we're getting ready to launch, the website will be done in the next couple months. That's what drew me to you when I saw your post.
Streetwear, yeah.
Because I am building, there's a page on there about sharing our stories. Mm-hmm. And this is going to be, I think the demographic for streetwear obviously is more youthful. Mm-hmm. And we have a great logo, right? So you put that on a hoodie. But what I said to my younger son, and we had talked about this, I'm like, but what's gonna the brand, like what's going to make it stand out about Noble One is let's share our stories. How did you
be noble?
Yes. How did you move to becoming more noble? You obviously went through something, because you don't grow without going through hard times. Mm-hmm. But let's talk about it. Let's share the stories about nobility and emotional struggles. What have you overcome, or what are you still dealing with? Mm-hmm. And so yeah, I see that as similar. It's a video podcast platform. And it's funny how I took my older son to the airport a couple days ago. He was looking to relocate, and we were actually talking about high school. And I told him, I said, I could interview you. You could be a story, because he was reflecting on the things that he had learned, like through playing sports. And this is just a couple examples. Like one was, he always thought, he played soccer, I want to be a forward and a midfielder, because that's how you score the goals. And that's what everyone thinks you're great, because you're the goal scorer. Well, this coach came in and was like, no, like, you're too tall. You need to be center back. You're a defender. And he excelled at that position, but yet in his mind, I still want to be forward. Mm-hmm. Okay, so he was reflecting on that. And then on like friendships and how kids just like, you get to high school and you're so uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. It's so new. And how like for him, he kind of went introverted. His brother went wildly extroverted, but you're trying to cope.
Yeah.
And so that's what we were talking about. I said, this is exactly what I'm talking about. You need to share this, because so many kids in high school are experiencing it, and they're following the same paths. They start to party, then they get addicted. If that, that could be one path. The girls, it's hard for girls right now too. So, all the stories, we don't have to get into that, but it's, if we were talking about it, could it help? Yeah.
You just have to share your story, and if you can help one person, the other person will carry it out.
So much. I was in tears when I watched your...
Thank you. No.
Because I could feel what you'd been through. Mm-hmm. And although it was completely different than me, it was this dismantling of what you knew, so that you would come out and build something, like you said, to impact one. Someone will listen to this.
Yep.
And it'll be out there in the world, and it'll catch somebody's heart, and then they'll go do something, and then that someone will listen to them, like, it's just like we're lighting like this
the universe
eternal. We're just like, I think of it like the Christmas Eve service where you light the candle.
So how can we help you?
Oh gosh, so getting the word out about Noble One would be the best help. I think it's so nobleones.org. And right now, so coaching one-on-one is one thing, but what I also want to do, and I will share this, is there's a free course on our website. Okay. And it teaches this method. It's the Noble method, and it's emotional processing. It's free. I literally made it so that people would have a tool to use. So go to the website. On the front page, it says Start Your Journey. Click that button, and everyone can take that for free. And then I have an online course. If you want to dig deeper into the method, you can take that course. And I also want to speak. Mm-hmm. And I can put together, the presentation would still be on this method, because it's so key to...
So what is the method?
So the method... It's an acronym, and it's based on cognitive behavioral therapy, but the acronym is NOBLE, the word noble. So N is notice your thoughts. O is observe your feelings that are coming from those thoughts, and that's how you feel, naming it. I feel angry, and when I feel angry, my shoulders get tight, okay? B is beliefs, questioning your beliefs. So this story that's running through your head about, oh my God, I'm not good enough, he didn't pick me, I'm not pretty enough, I'm not, whatever it is that true? What's the belief around that?
You're asking me?
Well, I'm just, so this is the process. You have to question, where are those beliefs coming from? And do you want to keep it, or do you want to reframe it? L is let it be. Let your feelings be there. You don't need to run from them. You don't need to distract yourself. You don't need to bury them, stuff them. Feel it. Cry, scream, laugh, whatever it is, you've got to let it be there. And then E is express. Express your needs. If you don't know what you need emotionally, how do you think someone in a relationship is going to know what you need if you don't know it yourself? And that could be self-care. Wow, I'm freaking out right now. I got to go for a walk. Or I need to talk to somebody. I need to call a friend. So you've got to express what you need emotionally. So that's the acronym NOBLE.
Okay, in the moment. Does somebody go through all those emotions?
It becomes really quick. Once you start to do it, it becomes second nature. And the first one, notice, becoming the observer, I mean, that's just presence. That snaps you back into the now moment. It's just like, stop what you're doing and get present. So if you're in your head, you're not present. If you're thinking about dinner, you're not present.
Never.
If you're thinking about the fight that happened 2 weeks ago, you're not present. So what is actual presence? It's like, it's now.
Okay, so have people taking your free course?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And what is the feedback?
It's been amazing. And it's the same thing that I teach to all my clients. This is where I start if I'm coaching you one-on-one.
Yeah.
So it's like not realizing that there was a way that they could have processed their emotions in real time. Because if you haven't done anything like this before, you're just doing what we talked about earlier, all the coping mechanisms.
Rinse and repeat, I call it.
Yep.
So is this process N, first I go through the N and then I go through the O?
Yeah, because you have to notice first. You have to become the observer first. If you're not willing to stop and look at yourself, like I said before, look in the mirror.
Yeah.
And be like, okay, what am I contributing to my own? And it's all here. I mean, every book I read now is all about just understanding the thought process and the brain and how it all links together. I mean, I could go on and on about, you've got the gut and this, that, and the other, but everything starts with the thought. You create your reality with your thoughts.
So what do your parents say now?
My parents? Oh my gosh, they're like my biggest fans. They're and I've actually had the conversation with them as I was going through this about our whole family is emotionally avoidant. And they get it, right? They get it now because it's like
Was that a hard conversation?
Yeah, but this is part of the process, right? Like I would say this last year, one of the things, because you're always growing and learning. It's not like you're ever like,
Hopefully.
oh, I'm healed. I am a guru, right? It's like you're just teaching what you've learned because it'll help somebody else.
Yeah.
And you're still learning. And this year, the big one for me, this theme has been like learning to finally use my voice, right? Which is the power of voice. Like I get to say how I feel. I get to have my own thoughts, feelings, beliefs, make my own decisions. And if you don't like it,
don't watch it.
It's okay.
Yeah.
I don't have to hold that it's not okay.
And your kids?
Same. They've grown so much too, because when I started to change, I had to go back and own that I was doing the same thing. So my parents taught me, then I taught them. So now I had to go back and own, oh my God, like, this is funny. Like this one time, my oldest son was like dating the crazy blondes, right? Another clip. And I'm like, okay, let's have a conversation. Do you know why you're picking the crazy blondes? And he's like, no. And I'm like, it feels normal to have the chaotic blonde.
And he said,
we just laughed, right? So but essentially it was a funny conversation, but I had to own, like, that's not, I didn't know. So now I want you to know. And now, like, we have the most amazing conversations, and they've changed a lot too, because it's like you just start to see, I think the younger generations now actually have a different lens. So I almost feel like when I coach the younger, like, generations, sort of like I'm this rebel, like, don't tell your parents, but this is what I really think. Or I'm teaching them how to communicate these new, what you really want. Like, you're not here to follow your parents' rules anymore. You know right from wrong, but you're on your path. And that's empowerment.
So I would normally ask you, what is your legacy gonna be? But I think you're not there yet.
Oh gosh.
Would I be correct?
I guess, like, if somebody said, Kristen taught me that it was okay to feel my feelings. Maybe that's my legacy. Because if we were all accepting that we have them, accepting one another, connecting with it, it's like our feelings and our emotions really are like a superpower, I feel. So yeah, it's harnessing your own feelings and emotions and then using them to create the life that you want.
I'm going to stop right there because that's the lesson, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, tell me your website again.
It's nobleones.org.
Okay.
Yeah, and that, like I said, there's a free class on there. And if there's anyone listening that wants to learn more about emotional awareness and just have these discussions, like I would love to come and speak. It's like just to get out in the community and start talking about this and like opening up our hearts and minds to just knowing it's okay to talk about mental health.
Yeah.
I call it emotional awareness. But
that's a better word.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for sharing.
Oh, thank you. It's so wonderful. And like I said, I just I felt that connection when I saw your story
thank
too.
You.
So.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Do you have a story to share? I'd love to hear from you. Please visit LoriCorken.com. There you will find more stories like the one you heard today with our series, The Power of a Voice.